Good morning, dear students. Good morning, dear students. Good morning, dear students.
Morning,
Good
sir.
morning,
Morning,
sir.
sir.
So yesterday we have studied about the relation of the electronic configuration and
Good
Good
morning, sir.
morning,
Good
sir.
morning,
Good
sir.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
yesterday we have studied about the relation between the electronic configuration and periodic table. We know that in electronic configuration we have two parts. One part is known as the core electronic configuration, whereas the another part is known as the valence electrons. When it comes to the core electron, they does not give us the exact idea about the position of the element into the periodic table, but valence electrons are quite useful for we people to know the position of the periodic, to know the position of the element into the periodic table. Please remember that Z is equal to 58 to Z is equal to 71 and Z is equal to 90 to Z is equal to 103. These elements are known as lanthanoids and actinoids respectively. They fall into F block and their period is considered as a third period. Even both the elements lanthanoid means lanthanum and actinum also belong to the group number 3. I have made a mistake. The group number for the lanthanoid and actinoid would be 3. At the same time, the group number for lanthanum and actinum would also be 3, my dear students. Now we should study about how do we come to know about the other elements for the group and the period. So as far as group is concerned, my dear students, if the last filled orbital is s, then the number of electrons present into the s orbital represent its group number. If the last filled electron is p, then the group number would be number of electrons in p plus 12. So this is how we can come to know about the total number of, this is how we can come to know about the group of the element. We can easily come to know about the, see for example, if the P has 1 electron, then the group number is 13, P2 14, P3 15, P4 16, P5 17 and P6 18. Now if the element goes into the, if the last filled electron goes into the d orbital, then group number would be number of valence electron in s orbital plus number of valence electron in d orbital. This is what we can easily understand by looking at these examples. Like for chromium, argon 3d5 for s1. So total number of valence electrons is equal in d and s is equal to 5 plus 1. That is 6. So group number is 6. Same way, my dear students, in case of copper, the electronic configuration is copper 3d10 for s1. So group number is 10 plus 1, which is 11. Same way for zinc 3d10 for s2. So group number is going to be 10 plus 2, that is 12. For platinum xenon for f14 5d9 6s1. So group number is going to be 9 plus 1, that is 10. So this is how, my dear students, it's easy for we people to recognize, to understand the group number for any electronic configuration, or by using the electronic configuration we can come to know about the group number. Same way when it comes to the understanding about the period, we can come to know about the period by using the principal quantum number of the s orbital. So in the electronic configuration, if you look at the s orbital, and then if you find whatever the principal quantum number for that particular s orbital, that s orbital must be present into the valence electron, and from that only we can come to know about the period. For example, if we have the last filled s orbital is 1s, then the period number is 1. If the last field orbital is 2s, then the period number is 2. When the last field orbital is 3s, then the valence electron, the s orbital has principal quantum number 3, then period 3. If in valence electron the s orbital has principal quantum number 4, then period number 4. In the valence electron, if the s has quantum number 5, then the period number 5. If in the valence electron, if the s orbital has quantum number 6, then the period number 6. And in the valence electron, if the s orbital has quantum number 7, then we can say the element belong to the 7th period. At the same time, my dear,
सर आवाज कट रही है.
Okay. I have said something so that you can get the clear voice. I hope you will get the clear voice. Have you been? Are you able to hear me, my dear students? Hello? Okay. So this is how, my dear students, we can understand that now we should even know that in which period which orbital.
Yes, sir.
Yes sir.
So whenever we study about the various orbitals, we should know that in which period which orbitals are filled. So in period 1, 1s orbital is being filled. In period 2, we have 2s and 2p orbital are being filled. In period 3, 3s and 3p orbitals are filled. In period 4, 4s, 3d and 4p orbitals are filled. In period 5, 5s, 4d and 5p orbitals are filled. In period 6, 6s, 4f, 5d, 6p orbitals are filled. In period 7, 7s, 5f, 6d and 7p orbitals are being filled. Now we know that in s orbital we can fill 2 electron. In p orbital we can fill 6 electron. In d orbital we can fill 10 electrons. In f orbital we can fill 14 electrons. At the same time, we can even come to know that how many orbitals are present into the subshell. So in P we have 3, in F we have 7, and in D we have 5 orbitals. So in 1s we can fill maximum 2 electrons. In 2s and 2p we have the orbital in 2s 1 and 2p 3, so total 4 orbitals. So total number electron that we can fill is 8. In 3s and 3p again we have 1 orbital of s and 3 orbital of p, so total 4 orbital and 8 electrons can be filled. In the 4th period, 4s, 3d and 4p, that means 1 for 4s, 5 for 3d and 3 for 4p, total 9 orbitals are present in period 4, and that is why we can justify the number of electron in period 4, number of element in the period would be 18. Same way for 5th period, the orbitals filled are 5s, 4d, 5p. In 5s we have 1 orbital, in 4d we have 5 orbital, in 5p we have 3 orbitals. So 5 plus 3 plus 1, that is 9 orbitals. In each orbital we can fill 2 electrons. So total number of electrons are filled into 5th period are 8. Hello? Hello dear students. Can you hear me?
Yes sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. So this
Yes,
is
sir.
what we can understand, that in the 5th orbital we will have the 9. In the 5th period we will have the 9 orbitals, and we can justify that there are 18 elements present into the 5th period. Same way into the 6th period we have 6s, 4f, 5d and 6p orbitals that can be filled. In 6s we have 1 orbital, in 4f we have 7 orbital, in 5d we have 5 orbital, in 6p we have 3 orbital. Total 16 orbitals are present. As there are 16 orbitals present, we can say that we can fill 32 electrons, and as we can fill 32 electrons, we can easily come to know that there are 32 elements present in the period number 6, and this is how we justify, my dear students, the total number of elements present into the particular period. We know that 7th period is incomplete, but still if we can fill all the orbitals, we would come to know that in future, if all the elements would be discovered, we will have 32 elements present into the 7th period, because there are total 16 orbitals that we can fill into it. So for any period, now you can justify the number of elements present into it. So this is how, my dear students, we can understand. Yes, Ashish, do you have any question to ask, my dear students? Ashish Ganawa?
No, sir. No, sir. By mistake.
Hello?
No, sir. By mistake.
Okay, no problem. Let's go to the next question. Element Z is equal to 117 and elements for Z is equal to 117 and Z is equal to 120 have not yet been discovered. In which family or group would you place these elements and give their electronic configuration? To understand them, in which element, in which period and which group we will place them, first we should write their electronic configuration. So let us go for Z is equal to 117. We know that this electron, this element goes beyond radon. So first we will put radon. Radon atomic number is 86. So 117 minus 86 would be 31. Now we have 31 electron left. After radon, we fill 5f orbital. So in 5f orbital, 31 minus 14, that is 17 electrons have been left. Now we will fill the 60 orbital. In 60, 10 electron goes. So 17 minus 10, that is 7. So now 7 electrons have been left. So this, out of this 7 electron, 2 electron goes into 7 s orbital. So now 5 electrons have been left, and this 5 electron goes into the 7p orbital. So we can say that the valence electron have the valence shell electrons have 2 electrons in 7 and 5 electrons in p. Now looking at the p field, we can easily come to know that in the last electron goes to the 7p. So the element belong to the p block element. At the same time, p has 5 electron, and that is why the group number is equal to 5 plus 12. That is the 17 group for this element. We can easily understand. So the element belong to the p block. The group number of element is 17. Now we will look at the s orbital. So when we look at the s orbital, my dear students, for Z is equal to 17, the s orbital has got the principal quantum number 7, and as s orbital has got the principal quantum number 7, the period number for this orbital is going to be 7. Now we'll look at the electronic configuration for Z is equal to 120. We know that 117 plus 3 is equal to 120. For 117, we have already written that radon 7s2, 5f14, 6d10, 7p5. We need to add 3 more electrons. So after 7p, like in 7p, we can add 1 electron. It turns as 7p6. Now after 7p, it comes 8s. So 1 electron, when it goes to 7p, it becomes 7p6. 2 electron have been left. This 2 electron goes into 8s orbital, and that is why the last electron goes to the 8s orbital. So last filled s orbital is 8s2. So principal quantum number is 8. So this element has got the period number 8, and the last electron goes into the s orbital, and s orbital has got 2 electron. That is why the element has the group number 2. So now, my dear students, you can, if you know the atomic number for any element, you can easily identify that what is the group and what is the period of that particular element. We have one more question. Consider the atomic number and position in the periodic table. So this is how. Consider the atomic number and position in the periodic table. Arrange the following elements in the increasing order of their metallic character. And then they have given us the silicon, beryllium, magnesium, sodium, and phosphorus. So first we will write the question, that is the element. So we have written in the box the element silicon, beryllium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. Then under them we have written their atomic number. On the basis of the atomic number, we have written their electronic configuration, my dear students. So electronic configuration for silicon is neon 3s2 3p2. As the s orbital has got principal quantum number 3, so period is 3, and 3p2. So in p electron there are 2. In p there are 2 electrons. So group number is going to be 2 plus 12, that is 14. Same way, my dear students, for beryllium Z is equal to 4. We have helium 2s2. So the period number is 2 and group number is also 2. For magnesium Z is equal to 12, neon 3s2. So period number is 3 and group number is 2. For sodium, Z is equal to 11, neon 3s1. So period number is 3 and group number is 1. For phosphorus, we can see that the electronic configuration is neon 3s2 3p3. So for s orbital we have 3s, so period number is 3, and for p orbital we have 3p3, so 3 plus 12, that is 15. That is why the group number is going to be 15. Now let us arrange these elements into the periodic table. So we will arrange them like by making a very small periodic table. Let us try to locate them. We have group number 1, group number 2, group number 14 and group number 15. You can see that in period number 2 we have beryllium, and in period number 3 we have sodium, magnesium, silicon and phosphorus. You can see it from the table itself that silicon, magnesium, sodium and phosphorus are in group number 3, whereas beryllium is in group number 2. So we have arranged them into the periodic table. Now what is the rule? Going down the group, metallic character increases, and going left to right, metallic character decreases. So if you go down the group into the group number 2, beryllium to magnesium, the metallic character increases, and we can say that magnesium is more metallic than beryllium. Same way, if you go left to right, you can see that sodium, magnesium, silicon and phosphorus, the metallic character decreases. That is why sodium is the most metallic, whereas phosphorus would be the least metallic. Now beryllium is present in group number 2, whereas silicon is present in group number 14. So there is a vast difference. The group number 2 to group number 14, there are some 12 groups present in between. So beryllium, which is present in alkaline earth metal group, it is a metallic, whereas the silicon and phosphorus would not be metallic. They would not be as metallic as beryllium, because beryllium is clearly a metal, and that is why the metallic character of barium would be more than silicon and phosphorus, but the metallic character of beryllium is less than magnesium. And we know that sodium is more metallic than magnesium because sodium is present at the left side of the magnesium. So now, my dear students, we can easily arrange these elements into the particular order of their metallic character. So what we can easily write for this element is that silicon is more metallic than phosphorus. That is what we have come to know, because silicon is present at the left side of phosphorus. So sodium is more metallic than magnesium. Beryllium in group 2, which is metal, so beryllium is more metallic than silicon and phosphorus. And ultimately we can write the increasing order of metallic character is phosphorus less than silicon, is less than beryllium, is less than magnesium, is less than sodium. So this is how, my dear students, we can easily write the order for the metallic character of any particular kind of like if we are given the group of elements, or if we are provided with the group of elements, we can write about their metallic character. We can arrange them into the increasing order of metallic character or decreasing order of metallic character. This is how we can do. Now, my dear students, I hope you can see the page number 15 and 16 on your screen. Are you able to see page number 15 and 16 on your screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Great.
sir.
So this is how we have
Yes, sir.
studied about
Yes, sir.
the page number 17 and 18. This order we have just written, like phosphorus is less than silicon, is less than beryllium, is less than magnesium, is less than sodium. Now we have the next question to go. Periodic change in the properties of elements. Now we are going to study the various properties of element which are being periodically changed. There are many observable patterns in the physical and chemical properties of elements. My dear students, we have learned the periodic table. So I'll just sing it for you. Hydrogen and helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen and fluorine, neon, sodium, magnesium, aluminium, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, argon, potassium, calcium, scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc and gallium. The periodic table. Mendeleev took the atom and he looked for patterns. The periodic table. In 1869 he pursued his design. You can see here that we are talking about some patterns. So Mendeleev took the atom and he looked for patterns. Here you can see that there are many observable patterns. These observable patterns in the periodic table are periodic, means they change period wise. These patterns are being followed by some of the elements which are placed into the groups, and these patterns when they are changing, when we are moving from left side to right side into the period, and that is why we call them the periods, because in a period we can see the various patterns, but in a group we can have the similar properties or similar chemical and physical properties. So when we call the group, we actually call them family also, because they are very similar to each other. And why are they similar to each other? Because their valence electron are almost same. They have same number of valence electron, and that is why these elements are similar to each other. So there are many observable patterns in the physical and chemical properties of the elements. For example, within a period, chemical reactivity is high in group 1 element, they are or group 1 metals of that period. Reactivity decreases toward the middle of the periodic table. So as we go left to right, the reactivity decreases. Then again the reactivity increases and it becomes maximum up to group number 17 elements, which are non-metals, which are also called the halogens. So you can see that when we go left to right from group number 1 to group number 17, initially group number 1 are very highly reactive metals, then the metallic character also decreases, the reactivity also decreases, then we come to know about the non-metals. Before we move to the non-metals, there are metalloids. These metalloids have the properties of both metal as well as non-metal. Suddenly the metallic elements do not convert into the non-metals, but they have a layer of metalloids or semi-metals, and then after the right side of the semi-metals we have almost all the non-metallic elements. So this is how, if we move from left to right, we can see the characteristics, we can see the properties have been changed. Same way when we look at the reactivity, the first group is highly reactive, the 17th group is highly reactive, the first group is the reactive metals, the 17th group is the highly reactive non-metals, and in between that, initially the reactivity decreases, and then after decreasing it becomes the lowest, and then slowly it increases, and again it reaches up to the highly reactive non-metals. So this is the pattern that we can observe in the periodic table. Same way in the group of the alkali metals, we have in the group of the alkali metals, group number 1 or group of alkaline earth metal, that is group number 2. Going down the group, reactivity increases. Now this is the pattern that we can see into the groups. So when we go down the group into the metals, the reactivity increases. Same way in group number 17, when we go down to the non-metals, group number 17 is the group of the non-metals. So going down the group, reactivity decreases. So if the group is made up of non-metals, going down the group, reactivity decreases. If group is made up of metals, then going down the group, reactivity increases. This is what it is, the pattern. So let us try to understand these patterns well. So, when we study these patterns, we call them the periodic properties. There are various physical properties which shows the periodic trends. For example, these physical properties are melting points, boiling points, heat of fusion, heat of vaporization, and energy of atomization. But here we will, we will focus on the periodic properties, which are the chemical properties. So, we would study the periodic trends in chemical properties such as atomic and ionic radii, ionization enthalpy, electron gain enthalpy, and electron negativity, my dear students. So let us start our study with the atomic radius. Finding the radius of an atom is more complicated than measuring the radius of the ball. Ball is a big, we can have the scale, we can measure the scale in a very simple manner, and this is how we can find out the radius. But finding a radius for an atom is really, really difficult. Now, why is it difficult? Let us try to understand. The first reason is the size of an atom is very small. It is approximately 1.2 angstrom or 1.2 into 10 to the power minus 10 meter in radius. So the radius of an atom is very, very small, which is in the power of 10 to the power minus 8 meter. And we do not have much scale to, or we do not have available scale into the, so that we can measure the radius of an atom. At the same time, we are even aware, the Heisenberg said that it is uncertain. Everything that we study into the quantum mechanical model is mostly depending upon the probabilities. So even if we try to measure the atomic radius properly, we cannot be sure by measuring it. We would have the results which are the probable results. The second thing is, electron crowd of an atom does not have any clear boundary. So determining the atomic size could not be precise. You know, there is no wall-like boundary around the atom. For example, if you look at the apple, then apple has a clear boundary that the apple is restored into its cover. Or when we peel off, or when we can see the peel of an apple, we can say that apple is existing up to this. The same is not the case for the atom. We do not know where, up to what level, the electron cloud of an atom has been spreaded. So there is no clear boundary, there is no clear wall for an atom to measure its radius. That is the another problem, that the clear boundary for atom, it is difficult to determine the clear boundary, and that is why it is very difficult. For these two particular reasons, it is really very difficult to measure the radius of an atom. Thus, there is no practical way of finding or measuring the size of an individual atom. Then the question arises, then how do we measure the atomic size? How atomic size can be estimated? Let us try to understand how the atomic size can be estimated. Atomic size can be estimated by knowing the distance between atoms in the combined state. So we actually cannot we cannot take the separate atoms and measure the radius, but instead of measuring the radius in the separate manner, we measure the radius into the combined state of atom. How distance can be measured between two atoms? So various spectroscopic methods, or using the X-ray diffraction method. Please remember, X-rays are used into the X-ray diffraction methods, and by using the X-ray diffraction method, the atomic radii or distance between the center of the atoms, or distance between the atom, is being determined. So the distance between the two atoms is being determined by either using the various spectroscopical method or by using the X-ray diffraction method, my dear students. Now, this is how we measure the atomic radii. So we have actually two types of atomic radii. One atomic radii is known as the covalent radii. Another atomic radii is known as the metallic radii. In other words, we can say that covalent radii and metallic radii, whatever we estimate, they are collectively known as atomic radii. What is covalent radii? The radius measured from the covalent molecule is known as covalent radii. What is metallic radii? Radius measured from the metallic solids are known as the metallic radii. Now let us understand, how do we measure the covalent radius? We are well aware that in covalent molecules, the atoms overlap each other and the bonds are formed. Let us take the example of chlorine atom. You know that in chlorine molecule, there are two chlorine atoms, they overlap each other and they form the bond. This bond formed by sharing of electron is known as the covalent bond. Now the distance between the center of these two chlorine atoms is either measured by using the spectroscopical method, or it is measured by using the X-ray diffraction. So the distance between the two center of chlorine atom is found to be 198 picometer. Remember, 1 picometer is 10 to the power minus 12 meter. So bond distance in the chlorine molecule would be 198 picometer, or 198 into 10 to the power minus 12 meter. Then we halve the bond distance. So half of the bond distance would be 198 divided by 2 picometer, that is 99 picometer, and that is why the atomic radius of chlorine would be 99 picometer, or 99 into 10 to the power minus 12 meter. So this is how, my dear students, we measure the covalent radius. Now we are going to define the covalent radius. So what is the definition of the covalent radius? If they ask you, you can write these answers that half of the distance between two atoms when they are bound together by a single bond in a covalent molecule is called covalent radius. I'm repeating of the atom. I'm repeating once again, half of the distance between two atoms, half of the distance between the two atoms when they are bound together by a single bond in a covalent molecule is called covalent radius, my dear students. Now I have underlined few words. The first word that I have underlined is half. Second word I have underlined is single bond. And third word I have underlined is covalent molecule. Remember that when we measure the covalent radius, the distance has to be halved. There must be a single bond, not multiple bonds. So when multiple bonds, we do not measure the covalent radius. And molecule must be covalent molecule to measure the covalent radius. Any other type of bond is present, then we would not consider the radius as a covalent radius, my dear students. So, and a very important point that covalent radius is measured for the non-metallic elements. Now we'll move to the metallic radius. Metallic solids are expressed as the sea of electron in which metal kernels are floating. This model for representation of metal is known as the electron sea model. My dear students, I have just tried to explain you the electron sea model. uh, uh, me or the other people or the scientists are not so clear that the electron sea model is exactly like this, but I have tried to give you an idea of the electron sea model. So you can see that with the blue ink and with the green ink, I have represented the various types of electrons. And with the positive sign, I have shown you the metal kernels. Metal kernels are the nucleus of the various metals that are present or that are floating into the sea of electron. So you can see the sea of electron with the blue ink as well as green ink. Now the reason why I have shown you the blue ink and green ink separately, that also we are going to study. But you can see that in the electron, in the sea of electron, the metal kernels floats into the metal, and that is how we can have the distance between the center of the two metal kernels that we can measure. My dear students, you can see that there are some orbitals which are, contracting, or which are intermixing, or which are touching each other, whereas there are some orbitals which are, which are available as if they are not the orbital of a particular metal atom, but they are available all over the crystal of the metal, which I have shown you with the green, which I have shown you with the green ink. These electrons which are present into green region, they are known as the conducting electrons, or in future you will study about, they are also called the conduction band. Whereas the blue colored, you can see here, these blue colored electrons, they are known as the valence electrons. So if you look at the right side, whatever I have written right side of the figure, I have written it clearly that note, look at the figure for metallic crystal in which the representation of electron sea model is given. Sea of electron is shown two types. One is blue color. Blue color are known as the valence electron, used to make metallic bond. And then we have the green color. They are known as the conduction electrons, used for conducting electricity. They are also called the valence band and conducting band. So my dear students, I have tried to explain you the electron sea model for the metal. Now the distance between the two atoms of the metal into the sea of electron, we can measure it by using the spectroscopical method or X-ray diffraction, and you can see that I have shown you this figure for copper metal, and for copper metal the distance between the two atoms is measured as 256 picometer. So for copper, in a copper metal solid, the internuclear distance separating metal core in the metal crystal is equal to 256 meter. Half of the internuclear distance is equal to 1/2, into 256 picometer. That gives us the 128 picometer. Therefore, the radius of copper atom would be 128 picometer, or it would be 128 into 10 to the power minus 12 meter, my dear students. So now we define the metallic radius. Half the internuclear distance separating the metallic core in a metallic crystal is called metallic radius. Repeating once again for you, my dear students, half the internuclear distance separating the metallic core in metallic crystal is called the metallic radius.